Three. All right. Hello. Welcome back, gamers. It's your boy, Oliver. Been a little bit. Took a couple days off. Mostly because I was kind of lazy. But I'm back now. Had a yesterday actually was very productive for me. I was pretty happy with stuff I got done. Uh, Obviously not this, but back now. Try and do one at least today and tomorrow. Uh, Trying to do stuff like these first couple days because Thursday, notably, Hades 2 goes into full release, and let me tell you, I'm gonna be thoroughly unproductive when that comes out because it's a lot of early access for that game. It's very good, and I'm very excited for the full release. I got a soda this time, Kroger Big K Citrus Drop naturally flavored soda. Fans on, so no interruptions. Hopefully, I'm gonna turn my sound off just in case something happens. But yeah, we're back in the game making process. I'm doing quite well. I think today we're gonna focus on. So you remember last time, a little refresher. Which, by the way, 5 people apparently have watched the second video. Only 3 people have watched the first one. Don't know who those 5 people are, but fascinating to think about. Fascinating to think about that possibly just random people are finding this through the algorithm. That's a fun thing to think about. Anyway, so last time we scrapped the setting stuff, I realized I made a very big blunder. And so we've kind of settled on this dungeon crawler idea with card-based elements, combining stuff from both blueprints, Shroom and Gloom, maybe some other things, and dungeon run. So today, I think, or at least I think my next goal is I want to focus on like these 2 bullet points. Figuring out like what the decks look like, how those work, how you like get cards. Ooh, excuse me. And then we can start figuring out like rooms, dungeon layouts, this stuff, etc., etc. So let's think about decks. Sorry, I'm burping because of the soda. That's very gross. It takes another sip of soda. Um, so I was thinking about this. I think it was yesterday, and I realized a, I had like 2 different ideas in my head. So I was thinking about this and this separately, which so I was thinking in my head, I'm like, oh, the combat deck, you shuffle like it's like a standard kind of roguelike, like Slay the Spire, where you have a deck of cards, shuffle, you draw a hand, play some cards, end of round, draw new cards, etc., etc. But in this, I was just for some reason I did not think about shuffling this. It's just like you just have like 30 cards in your hand all at once, and you cycle through them. I'm like, wait, that doesn't work. So I need to figure out how I want to do this. I think we start with the exploration. Is that true? Did we start with this? Did we start with either, or did we just do both at the same time? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But so you get your exploration deck, which, if you remember, is used to like overcome traps, explore the environment, and then a combat deck, which is used to fight off monsters and stuff. My little paint drawing. I will probably be opening paint again this episode. I will probably be opening paint most episodes going forward because I find it helpful for me to have visualization. Okay, so exploration deck. Hmm. So we need to figure out because there should you obviously you need cards to start in both of these decks. You need a baseline. And so what is the baseline? And so I think we're opening paint now actually. Okay. So let's say so I know we're not gonna fully talk about like classes and stuff yet. I don't want to figure that out. But let's say we're going to be very generic. Let's say you've got your warrior, right? Queue up, maybe this is like the starting character or whatever. You got your like generic kind of sword and board warrior, right? Your expo deck. How many? I think how many cards start in a Slay the Spire deck. I think it's like 12 or 13. Because it's like 5 strikes, 5 defends, and then the 2 special cards. That sounds right. I guess, yeah. It's like every day. It's like 12 or 13. Okay. So that's for the combat deck. How many cards? Shrew and Gloom, I feel like you start off. I'm trying to remember. In Shroom and Gloom, I believe you start off with like a punch, which you can use to open locks. Oh, I should write this down. Okay. Okay. Exploration deck. So Shroom and Gloom. Shroom and Gloom. Shroom and Gloom. Shroom and Gloom. Okay, so the Shroom and Gloom exploration deck, if I remember, starts off with like a punch, which opens locks, but you take damage. And it's infinite use, because some cards only have like a certain amount of uses. For this you can use infinite times, because it's your fist. You start with Jerky, which heals you, but it only has like 2 uses. I think you start off with a key. You start with 1 key. Opens lock, but it's only got 1 use. That's key. What else do you have this Shroom and Gloom? I don't remember. I could definitely. I think I have Shroom and Gloom on my game. I think I could just open it. Is that true? I'm gonna like have to block the screen off. Hold on. Okay. I'm gonna pause the recording to see if I have Shroom and Gloom downloaded. I don't want you guys. All right, we're back. I remember you get a rest card, which is more healing. Plus, you start combat. You start combat with an extra card called Well Rested. It does with I guess a unique card. And also a map. Look at future rooms. Also notably, I forgot these all have energy costs. So you have 3 energy. Play cards. Punch is 0 energy. Jerky is 1 energy. Key is 0 energy. The rest card is 2 energy. And the map is also 0 energy. So this is how the Shroom and Gloom thing is structured, right? And then obviously you can draft more cards, you can draft different key types, which do different things. You can draft things like training dummies, which you can use to upgrade attacks. You can draft like a soup pot, which I think lets you like make new food. So I really like this. So I guess we need to like, how do you feel when this is like kind of a starting zone? Our exploration. Okay. I think a map is the map just a separate button in our game though. I guess that's the question. Or do we want it to be a card? That is actually a good question. I should think about. Map question. Question. Paint open also. Bunch. Alright. I guess so. We need to think about what are our goals with exploration. I guess that's actually a question we should answer. Goals with, or like things player can do while exploring. Things player can do while exploring. Right? What do things can do? They can find loot, right? Find loot. You can like open chests, but some chests are locked. Need to be unlocked. I cannot fucking type that, goddamn. So you can find loot, open chests, but some chests need to be locked. Sometimes there's just like loot on the ground. Or like hidden, like loot Pick up. Yeah, pick up loot. Do I want just random loot strewn about? Not overly. It's like hidden loot. Okay, hold on. I need to figure out how. Okay. Find loot. We can break this down later. Find loot. Engage with traps. Traps. Hmm. I wonder if you can hear me tapping my fingers on my desk. Engage with traps. Find hidden areas. Areas. I think this is. Does this work? I said that as if there was gonna be a fourth thing. This I think is the main three things I want you doing while exploring. It's finding loot, engaging with traps in some way, whether it's like disabling them or getting hit by traps, etc., and then finding hidden areas. So like finding and engaging with things. These are the three mainstays, and then you break this down where it's like opening chests. Some chests are locked. Require a key or something else. Engage with traps. Figuring out ways to disengage. How to avoid them. Utilizing cards in weird ways to find secret things. Thinking outside the box. Very generic buzzword sentence. Alright. So yeah, so these are kind of the three things, and we can break these down more. These are just like initial ideas. And let's make this like that. There you go. Okay, so baseline, we need like ways to do these things, right? So in my head, right, I think. So the reason the punch card exists in this game, right? I don't have a finished sentence actually. Ignore that sentence. I'm off my game today. I'm sorry. I'm rusty. It's been well like a week. Oh my goodness. This might be a shorter video today. I like cannot think for some reason. All right. So, hmm. I'm trying to think. My big thing right now is, do I want an infinite use lockpick, basically? And I think the answer is no, because I think that's a design space that is more interesting if it's not, if at least if it's not infinite on every character. Maybe there's like a rogue character who in itself has like a lockpicking kit and therefore can open more chests. But I think on average, it's more interesting if just because like this game is gonna have a higher focus on like finding and like looting and exploring than Shroom and Gloom. So I think it makes more sense to not have this. But I think maybe you start with a key, one use key. I think we can do generic cards, and then so like maybe there's like 3 or 4 generic cards that come in every exploration deck, and then you get like 1 or 2 super card, like or not super cards, but like special cards depending on your class, right? Um, I think some kind of like ration, small heal, or like a ration, or like a health potion, depending on like how we want to theme this. Because I guess I can literally just write heal. It doesn't. I don't have to write fancy. I can just do heal. Small heal. Limited use. Limited use. So the idea of a rest card is interesting. I don't think I want a rest card. Hmm. Hmm. So a key, so you start off with a key, a little heal, map. What are other like generic exploring tools? What's in the like adventurers kit in D&D? Rope. I did throw out rope earlier as an idea, but realistically, how much are you going to be using rope? I guess however much I want the player to use rope, I guess that's kind of up to me, huh? Yeah, that's a fair point. Hmm. So could be okay, so it could be these three as like the generic cards, and then you have like two more cards that are then class specific. Could be interesting. Hmm. Final, because then that puts you up to 5 cards in your base exploration hand, which I feel seems reasonable. I feel like 5 cards is a good reason. Well, it's a poker hand. Yes, that is true. I played the lot true. Cards are class specific. That way, like you have some general stuff, and then like these are kind of maybe like utility based help explore class flavor, whatever that is. We'll figure that out at a different point. But yeah, I think that was a weird voice crack. I think this works as kind of a baseline usage. So, and then we figure out kind of a combat deck. Combat deck, I think, is going to work a kind of similar way. Uh, Combat deck. So, I guess I'm going to Slow Spire. Slow Spire starts with it's like 6 strikes, which are your damage dealing, or no, 5 strikes, which are your damage dealing cards, 5 defense, which are your blocking cards. And I guess the question before we do this, there's a lot of before we do this because I keep forgetting things. Do we want combat to just work? Do we want combat to be turn-based? And I think the answer is yes. I think I'm fine with combat itself being, or at least the framework of combat being kind of generic-y, where it's just. I should write this down though somewhere. Combat turn-based. Let's say you get like a certain amount of energy slash mana, carotene. Certain amount of energy slash mana per turn. Once you end turn, enemies go back to you. And just kind of flip flop. Uh, Goal reduce enemy health to 0 before yours. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Simple, easy framework to build off of. Cool. Anyway, back to the combat. Now that we've kind of established that, I realized I had not established what combat was. So there we go. So yeah, that should be pretty simple. So yeah, back to Flowspire. 5 attack cards that do damage to the enemy, 5 block cards which protect you from damage, and then 2 kind of unique cards. For example, is it 2 or 1? It's definitely 2. I'm trying to think what the second Ironclad card is. Okay, well, anyway, so for example, the Silent, one of the characters you unlock, they're 2 kind of unique starting cards. It's a 0 cost card that does a little bit of damage to the enemy and then weakens them, so they do less damage for a turn or 2. And then they get a big block card that also discards a card from their hand, which shows like the weakening card is cheap, which helps show that they really like cheap, fast cards that do a little bit of damage, and then they also like discarding cards. Like those are 2 of their core themes. So yeah, I think 5 attack. Do we want block or do we want to like heal? We have block. Hmm. I feel like block works. I feel like I like blocking. Because, so we've got a heal in here, right? Because do we want it to be all health based? I mean, hmm. Another question. I'm trying to think for like baseline combat because obviously we can have different characters that actually specialize in different things and maybe introduce unique mechanics relative to them. But we should do that to make the characters stand out. For baseline combat, do we want everybody being like putting a block, or do we just want like health? I feel like I want to do block because then you can introduce like you have like armor and stuff, right? Hmm. 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 Coming up here. I guess another question you want to ask, right? Because so obviously I'm talking about Slay the Spire again. Apologies, you wanted to shoot. Tired of hearing about Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire has relics, which are kind of passive items that you draft. They give you different effects. Notably, each class also starts with their has like a starting relic. For example, the Silence starting relic is start of the game. They just draw 2 additional cards, which is a very simple effect. Some relics that you get on are like more complicated. Um, like for example, one is like fuck, I'm forgetting everything. Like there's a relic that makes it so you can draft cards from any class, which creates obviously very obtuse, weird combos. Simpler relic just increases your max health by 10 or like 14. Relic that makes chops cheaper. Relic that makes the weakening effect on enemies more effective. A relic that makes weakening less effective on you. There's like a bunch of different effects. And then Shroom and Gloom also has passive effects, which helps kind of push you in different directions. Um, hmm. Which would be cool. Again, this is why I need more people here. I have too much, a hard time thinking of all these things at once. Passive effects would be cool. Question is, how do we want to do that? Like, do we want to do them like the relics and shit like that? Do we want to see you find gear? Like quotation marks? Like you have. Ooh. Okay, yeah, so maybe instead of just like drafting a buck ton of relics, you get like gear slots. Here's my potential ideas. Gear slots works like relics from Slay the Spire. Yes. So like you can get like different armor pieces, armor slash clothes, clothes, clothes pieces, different effects, different weapons which can affect cards. Um, Magical relic rings and stuff, you know? You know? To help kind of push builds in different directions. And then the question becomes, do you start with stuff in your gear slots? I don't know. Ooh, hold on. Okay, thought. I've just had a thought specifically with this. So maybe because I've talked about, I mentioned right in Slay Spire, you start with strikes. What if we do this gear slot thing, and the weapon you have in your gear slot affects what strikes you have in your deck, right? Okay, so like, ignore this. Um, Right. Okay, so let's say you have like a sword. Like let's like do the gear slots, right? You've got your helmet, chest piece, leggings, arms, and then weapons, and then I guess like boots, whatever. You get your little guy, right? And you've got a sword. Okay, wait, yeah, you've got a sword and you've got a shield, right? So I guess we're back to the warrior, right? Your starting stuff is a sword and a shield, right? So which gives you this gives you 5 strikes, which each deal like 5 damage. And the shield gives you 5 blocks. Okay, wait, I think I'm cooking actually. Which block 5 damage. Block 5. But then you open a chest. You open a chest, which you get like a warhammer, right? You get like a big like two-handed. Because notably, so this is one-handed, and this is one-handed. But you find a big warhammer that does like 10 damage, like five bashes. And these are 10 damage. But this is two-handed. So when you put this in your deck, this goes out, and or like when you equip this into this slot, and it uses both of these slots. So you lose these 5 strikes, and you lose these 5 blocks, but now you have these big 10 damage attacks, right? But you've lost your blocks and these strikes in your blocks. Are you seeing the vision? Are you seeing the vision right now? Are we cooking? Chat, we might be cooking a little bit. Obviously, the numbers would have to change because the or yeah, because then you're trading 10 cards for 5, which actually could be a plus in some scenarios. But maybe that I don't know. Maybe that's something we could play with. But this could be the vision, and then maybe you've got like so like every okay, okay, whoa, yeah, okay. Okay, wait. I actually think this is wait, hold on. This is so like you find these gear pieces, and the gear pieces are what adds cards to your deck. Oh wait, I'm wow. Woo! Wait, did I cook? I think I might have cooked. This is wait, I'm actually really liking this idea. So the gear pieces are what? Okay. The gear, what adds, subtracts. We found our unique idea. We found the thing that makes our deck unique, that makes our game cool. We did it. We figured it out. So the gear is what adds. Okay. So, what was it? Alt Shift 5. Yeah, I remember. Alt Shift. Yeah. Oh, should be bolder. Find pieces of gear, armor, and weapons. When equipped, add new. Okay, chat. I think we figured it out. I think we've had the breakthrough. This is it. This is the moment. Okay, yes! Let's fucking go. I'm so excited, actually. Wait, this sounds so cool. I can't wait for like 5 episodes down the line where I realize this doesn't work. But right now, we're kind of going. Okay, so yeah, and then so like you have a helmet that maybe so like like say you have like a helmet like a standard like knight helm, right? Hem helm, right? And maybe and yeah, so like maybe things could add to both, but like some items can add to both. Like helmet can add maybe it adds another block card, but maybe it also adds to your expiration deck like a headbutt, like a head bash or something, right? I guess maybe they're doing this for like the gauntlet. Gauntlet. Okay. But yeah, I like this, I like this, I like this, I like this. This sounds okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. So we found our gimmick. So I do think hmm. So then the question then becomes, so if we're doing this gear system then, do I still want every class to start the same way? I think the answer is for the most part yes. Like I think having every, hmm. I guess that's something we can kind of come back to and test. Is just like if we feel like it's more interesting to have people start with more varied decks, then maybe like maybe we have like a berserker character who starts with like no blocks, but then has other ways to like get health back or something. That could potentially be more interesting. Hmm. Maybe yeah, maybe it's more what's the word when things aren't the same? I don't know. You get what I'm saying. So yeah, maybe they're not all the same. But that's I really like this. I really, really like this. I think this is really cool. Okay. So now okay, there's a new thing that we're gonna try and figure out. Get this out of here for right now. Is what are our gear slots? And so I'm gonna pull this back up. Do I need this right now? I think I can. Gonna add a new layer. Just turn that one off. You guys know that Paint has layers? I found this out like a couple months ago. This is so cool. It's like Photoshop, but free and significantly worse. But free. Okay, so let's think about like stuff, right? So obviously you've got your head, right? You've got your headwear, um, chest wear. Trying to kind of like draw a chest, torso. Tells it. You know what? I'm just gonna fucking label these. Head. You got your chest. Hmm. So like, trying to think of like what in D&D all the slots are, or like Pathfinder. Because I'm trying to figure out, because I like the idea of having like a like right hand, left hand for like weapons and stuff. Hold on, I'm trying to figure out this. Would this be left-handed? I guess it doesn't matter. Right hand. That can be whatever I want it to be. Left hand for like weaponry or like staves and stuff. You do that. Feet, like footwear, like boots and shit. Do that. Or do we want to do legs, like pants? I'm trying to think like magic pants. Um, I think like having like a separate thing over here for like maybe like magic rings or something, or like maybe like accessories, like I don't know, like the trinkets. Or maybe trinkets is a good word because it could be like rings, like little pendant, like pendants or some shit like that, right? Like a little trinket area, and maybe you'd have like a couple of these. Like, do we want to do like arms, like man, like I'm trying to do like, or do we just want to do like these three trinkets, weaponry? Because like I think you could do. I think there's a lot of different types of like magic boots and shit you could do. And like I think chest piece makes a lot of sense. I think headwear makes a lot of sense because that could be like different kinds of helmets. It could be like magic circlets or like magic hoods or some shit like that. Chest pieces can obviously be, like full armor, like a robe. Maybe, okay, maybe this is just like, maybe I'm thinking about this like too narrowly. Maybe this is just like I don't want to use the word armor because it might not be armor for every class, but like, you know, clothing. Clothing doesn't really work either. Um, I guess body, maybe. I think guess body, yeah, kind of works, right? You get head, body, feet, hands, and then trinkets. That's one, two, three, four, five. It's up to six. Kind of seven if we count two-handed as a thing too. So two-handed also. I think that works. I think this works as slots. And let's say there's like three slots, right? Three trinket slots. Yeah. Okay, I think this works for right now. Okay, so gear slots, head, body, feet, um, right hand, left hand, trinkets. Cool. Oh, I'm like actually like so giddy with excitement about this. And so I'm gonna actually just condense right and left hand. Left, yes, right slash left hand. So I feel like body and head are going to be usually like body. I think is primary defensive, defensive, secondary, utility stuff. Head, I think, is going to be primarily utility, and then secondary is defensive. I think swap. And what I mean by this, so the way I'm defining this, and I should probably define this somewhere, is defensive. So I'm thinking of terms in like the cards that they draft or the cards they add to your deck, right? Where defensive are cards that add some kind of block or defensive options to your deck. Utility are more um, like not necessarily like aggro defensive, but like buffs, debuffs. Potentially they focus more on your exploration deck, stuff like that. Offensive, doing damage, reducing the enemies, reducing the enemy's life points, stuff like that. Um, those are my three kind of thoughts, and I think this is a thought I've had in my head while I've been doing this, and I've not said it out loud yet. But I think, and maybe this is, I'll write this down over here as well. Um, but beyond adding cards to your deck, maybe some higher level pieces of gear also just have general passive effects. Potentially, so it has built-in passive effects beyond cards added. Or like ways that can they're like kind of build like higher level gear you can kind of build around because they have unique effects on top of the cards they add to your deck. Like maybe you find like like a legendary fiery sword that adds fiery attacks to your deck and then also just buffs your fire damage, right? Just by base. Shit like that. Like classic like legendary magical gear. I'm like tweaking out. This is awesome. Okay. Defensive utility, feet, I think is just primary utility. I think I need like a fourth thing, but I don't know what that would be. Utility. I think this can be like offensive slash defensive, kind of interchangeably. Like I think it depends, right? Like because you can have a shield, you can have a two-handed weapon. You can have weapons that are like kind of like even you can have weapons that are focused on defensive stuff, right? Like maybe you've got like a big like spear that is two-handed, but like it because of its long range, you can kind of poke and also block with it. Trinkets, nebulous. They kind of can do any like trinkets. I think are going to be all over the place. Like everything that doesn't go into here, it's going to go into trinkets. I think. Ooh. Yes. Okay. So we found our main gimmick. We did it. I didn't even realize I was looking for it, but I found it. So we found our main gimmick. Um, so now what? Because I think now that we kind of have this idea, because the reason I wanted to talk about like decks originally was because I was trying to flush that bit out so I could build out the rest of the game. And 'cause having that as our baseline, but now that the gear is our baseline, I feel like maybe we can explore different things now because I think this is a very easy system to mold, especially if we're happy. I'm also like pretty happy with the idea of just having like a at least starting off with a basic Slay the Spire deck. Like I think it'll be easier to come up with the deck specifics now that we have the deck kind of generalizations, right? Of like generic items, having stuff built in with the armor, like generic block. Like we have combat generally mapped out. Now that we have this, I think we could focus on a couple of these specific things, like how we want rooms to work. Maybe start figuring out classes and faction stuff. I don't know if I want to do this first, or I feel like we should maybe do room stuff first. Well, again, I think the baseline of having this work similar to blueprints, where like you enter a new room, you get like three, or you get let's just say three choices, right? Pick one, opens that new room, and then in my head, um, rooms, pick one, oh, go through new doorway, pick one of three, clear, layout. Okay, rooms themselves stay the same. Rooms themselves stay the same through each one. Layout of dungeon that changes, right? So like the the spike pit is always going to be the spike pit, right? But sometimes you'll find it over here. Sometimes it'll be down here. Sometimes you won't even encounter the spike pit, right? Does that make sense? But like the spike pit itself is always the spike pit. Is kind of what I mean by that sentence. So another thought I've just had. So the way blueprints limits you again, very small spoilers for blueprints. Just basic gameplay thing. You learn this like immediately. But I'm just again, go play blueprints if you haven't played blueprints already. It's really fucking good, and go into it as unspoiled as you can. But basically, so in blueprints, you get 50 steps, right? As I say, you get 50 steps, and every time you enter a room, even if you've already been in the room before, you lose a step. You go until you run out of steps. Um, so I think the limiting factor in this game is just your health, right? Like you have a health pool, and you'll take damage from monsters and traps and stuff. So I think that's limiting factor. So I think these are steps. The other thing is, your goal is to make it to a certain part of the house, and not every room is the same, right? Where some rooms, you've got a doorway here, and then you've got a doorway here, right? So you've got like a ways to exit. Some rooms only have the one entrance, and they're just dead ends. Some rooms obviously have multiple, they work like this, right? But so like part of the challenge of blueprints is drafting the house in a way where you can get to the specific area that you need to get to. How do we want to factor that in, right? Like, do we just want to have, hmm, hmm, like, do we want that potential for like dead ends and stuff? I mean, I think we should. Hmm. How to deal with dead ends. How do we deal with dead ends? Do we want to deal with dead ends? Um, I don't know. This is an interesting question. Do we want that to be a factor? And if it's not a factor, or if we don't want it to be a factor, how do we deal with it, right? How do we take it out of the equation? Um, hmm. And the answer to that question, the answer to the second question is if we don't want to deal with it, is I think potentially hmm, can make it more linear and less exploration based. I'm not necessarily less exploration based, but make it more. Ooh, hmm, hmm, huh. Potentially, so workaround for this potentially. Actually, I keep this another layer. Internal, right? Is instead of because originally the pitch is drafting like one room of a dungeon at a time. Potentially, a solution is we're drafting bigger chunks of the dungeon, right? So instead of drafting the spike pit, maybe we're drafting like the trap masters, the trapsters layer, right? So instead of just being one room, it's like a bunch of like connected zones that are all kind of themed around, the trap master, right? So you've got it's like these are doorways, right? This kind of looks like a little like Frankenstein patch of skin. Gross. But like yeah, you like enter here and you're going through. So now instead of just drafting one room, you've drafted like a chunk of the dungeon, like a quadrant, and this has like multiple exits. So you can put like an exit here, you put like an exit here, and put like an exit here. So you can explore and go through all these different rooms. But as soon as you find an exit, you can just leave this and go to the next zone, and then you get offered like three quadrants again. And let's say now you're in the the swamp. You're in the swamp, and each area kind of has its own dealio. You know, my issues with this is that it's hard. That's hard. It's potentially hard to design because now I'm. It's more to design rather because now instead of designing individual rooms, like potentially individual small rooms, you're now making full levels basically, which admittedly is something I like doing. So that's not necessarily a downside, but it is more work. Um, you're also potentially giving the player less. It's less random that way then because instead of just drafting like let's say the traps is layer is the dungeon, right? Instead of all of these rooms individually being random, now it's these big chunks that are random. So that's potentially less engaging. Hmm. Is there a way to combine these? Hmm. Like these ideas, right? Of like drafting individual rooms and drafting big areas. So we introduce booster packs. Is that what we're doing? Is that we introduce like different dungeon booster packs that you draft? That's not a, that's okay. That's an interesting idea. I don't know. I really like Trapster's Lair. I want to incorporate this somehow. Let me add this to it. Hold on. Adding Trapster's layer to the ideas pile. Trapster's layer. There. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so here's a pitch that I'm gonna put out here. So what if, so at the start of the run, maybe you draft, maybe it's either randomized or you draft like three different like big areas, right? So like Trapster's Lair, the Swamp, and uh Goblin Town. Goblin Town. Right? So these are your three big areas that you know going in. This is what I'm starting the run with. Like I have to get through these three areas. And then so each of these has their own kind of like booster pack of rooms, right? So you start in Trapster's Lair, and Trapster's Lair, you know you're going to be drafting shit like the Spike Room or like Pit Trap Room or Scary Spike Room, Scary Evil Room. I don't know, right? But you get what I'm saying. So like, there's macro and micro kind of drafting. So okay, I feel like I'm not being very clear. Let's try. Let's take this from the top. So start of the run. You're queued up. You've picked your hero, and then either you pick or it's randomized. We can figure that out later. But you are given these three, like, what's the word I'm going to use? Modules, areas, places, like that have been meshed together, right? You get the Trapster's Lair. So you have to get through like all three of these areas, and then over here is the boss, right? Boss is over here. Or maybe the boss is like the boss of Goblin Town. Yeah, maybe this decides what the boss is. I don't know. But you've got these three areas. You got to get through Trapster's Lair, you got to get through the swamp, and you've got to get through Goblin Town. Or maybe they're like interconnected. I don't know. Maybe it's like a circle. We can figure that out. But so you start in Trapster's Lair. You start like here, right? And same thing as before, where like I guess actually you start here. You go through this doorway, and then you pick a room. You pick one of three rooms, and let's say there is like a base set of rooms that you can draft, and then whichever area you're in, these rooms get added to the pool. So like by base, you've got like Goblin Warren. What else did I say? Goblin Warren, like Ruin Chapel, um, Treasure Room. But then Traps' Lair, like as long as you're in here, adds other things like Spike Pit and Scary Murder Hallway and Buzzsaw Boneyard or some shit, right? Does that make sense? Then once you get to the swamp, the Trapster's lair rooms get cycled out, and the swamp things get added. So you get like the Frog Fairy, or that's a over the ground wall reference, uh, or Big Sloppy Mud Room. I don't know, right? And then same thing when you get to Goblin Town, right? Where like swaps out. The issue is that might be kind of annoying to code. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't be that hard to code. I guess maybe you could just do like a threshold. I don't know. I mean, everything's gonna be fucking hard to code. I'm shit at coding. That's a future Oliver problem. But that could work. Is it better than just like, because then I'd have to like design these multiple areas, which would be kind of fun. Hmm. This is interesting. This is interesting. Hmm. I think I might have to come back to this. I might have to think on this for a little while. I think what do we have with today's episode? Oh my God, we're almost at an hour. Okay, yeah, I think we're gonna pause here for today. I'm gonna have to think on this. You guys can also think on this. Alright, but rooms. So, stuff for next time. I should have like a next time section. Alright, next here. I'll have like a. No, I'm not. Fuck it, Weeball. I can remember. Okay, so draft map chunks at start of run that add their own room and rooms, and then you can map chunks instead. Also chunks start pool that area. So we'll do that, and we'll think on this more. But this is, I really, really like the gear slot angle. I think this is a really cool. Um, I think this is really cool. I really like this idea. I think I could do a lot with this. Very happy. Good progress today. I gotta figure out what game I'm using. I probably Sherman Gloom. I talked about Sherman Gloom or Slay the Spire. Did I talk about? I probably talked about Slay the Spire more. Yeah, we'll probably go Slay the Spire. This one. But yeah, holy shit, good episode. Nice work today, everybody. Very proud. Stay fresh, chat, and fucking rock on, baby. Good work.